The views expressed are not necessarily those of KSCJ and Powell Broadcasting Company. This program is not intended to replace the advice of doctors or other clinical providers. Consult with your practitioner to ensure the proper course of action for you.
Welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well on AM 1360, FM 94.9 KSCJ. This program is dedicated to your mental health wellness and brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency. Here's your host, Art Silva.
Good morning and welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well. This show is all about your mental wellness and how you can help yourself navigate the daily highway of life. Our show is brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency serving the Siouxland community. Our topic today is the summertime blues. Sometimes I wonder what I'm going to do because there ain't no cure for the summertime blues. They are real. Joining me today are Family Services Chief Operating Officer Brenda Geisinger and Clinical Therapist Rosie Strunk. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Okay, I guess the first thing we ought to do, let's define our topic. Summertime blues, often viewed as medically as summer seasonal affective disorder, a type of depression that coincides with seasonal changes. Now, according to the Cleveland Clinic, it affects around 500,000 people, typically associated with winter. Somehow this is also a version in the summer. So let's kind of like get your understanding of depression and SAD. Let's take a look at what are some of the symptoms. Okay. Rosie?
Well, in regards to the summertime blues, we all kind of have a sense of what the winter blues are because we're kind of contained and, the weather and all that stuff. And sometimes we forget that we also might have the summertime blues. And it's a little different than the winter because some of those symptoms for the summertime blues is that we might get more agitated. In the winter, we become more lethargic. So we might become more agitated. The other part is that in the wintertime, we gain weight. In the summertime, we might lose our appetite when we have kind of the summertime blues. Sometimes we have trouble sleeping because of the change in the sunshine, in a sense. In the winter, we tend to sleep more so. So those are some of the differences with the summertime blues. And when you think of summer, lots of times we're thinking summer is supposed to be fun, exciting, lots of things are going on, that kind of stuff. And for some people, summertime brings more stress. And because routines are different, there's things that are just different for a person. And so then that might move into depression for people because of a different stress that they're having for the summer. So and there's a lot of factors in there about that.
Hey, great. Brenda?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a hidden secret that people might suffer from the summertime blues. It just seems so out there or bizarre. And when everybody thinks of summer, it's sunshine and fun and happiness and ice cream. But, there's real struggles with it. And, you think of, oh, my goodness, I have to get the bikini body ready. Well, it's just putting on the bikini and enjoying life. But for some people, it can be really, really stressful and depressing for them.
Well, Rosie had talked about some of the symptoms, and let's kind of like briefly go back over them. And one was important was the having a routine. We've talked about that in previous shows, the importance of a routine.
Right. When you think about summer, with families and they have children, all of a sudden the routine's different. They've got the children home. They got to figure out what are they going to do in regards to daycare or routine for the children. And then they have children who are bored and will tell mom and dad, this is really boring. This is really boring. And so it's important to plan ahead. And I think that's something that's also significant when you're looking at the summertime coming to help you get more in sync with it is to plan ahead and look at what can we develop as our routine for the summer. Some of that might be maybe kids going to a certain daycare camp or, doing something specifically throughout the day, being daycare or whatever. But routine is really important. When we lose the routine, that gets us stressed out. And then we might get more frustrated and sad and irritable. So routine is extremely important in regards to the summertime.
And that goes right back to what you said initially, that in the summertime we tend to get more irritable with seasonal adjusted affective disorder as opposed to the wintertime when we get more lethargic. So I think this is really interesting. And, you always get these blues. And Brenda, you touched on the cosmetic side. I don't want to go out, the bathing and stuff. That's all real world that people think about, and they look at the summer and they feel they can't participate. How about sleeping habits in the summertime?
I think with the seasonal affect disorder, with the summertime blues, people may have trouble sleeping. The sunshine changes your chemical balance, and so you may struggle because your body is producing more melatonin. And so it's important to have a sleep schedule and really be diligent about that if you're struggling with it. Closing the blinds, make sure the room is dark, cooling off. But it's a real issue for some people.
Good morning again. I'm Art Silva, and with me today from Family Services are my friends Rosie Strunk and Brenda Geisinger, and we're talking about the summertime blues. So let's continue our discussion. We're talking on some symptoms. Weight loss. You can see weight loss is a symptom. Anxiety, and we talked that this is part of the cosmetic, how you feel about your body. How about financially? Are there some financial situations that create anxiety in the summertime?
You bet, because summertime people tend to want to do vacations or do fun activities. And so financially, people are trying to kind of figure out, can we do these things? One of the things that I've thought about is, and I've experienced with different people, is Facebook envy, where people are putting stuff on Facebook and people are going, oh, I wish we could do that. Oh, I wish we could do that. And what I encourage people to do is to look at, how could you do something similar to that or something like that, in a sense, within your budget. Sometimes it might be doing a stay vacation and then maybe doing like, what's the history of our town, and going to all the historical sites.
Idea.
Or doing, let's go to different coffee shops and see what different coffee shops are. Looking at things like going to the museum. Sometimes we have a museum here and people don't go, and that's an indoor thing for those who don't like the heat, because that's the other part, is the heat part. But financially, it's looking at how can I do this, be it with our family, and still be within our budget. And it might be taking short weekend things that could be fun, that you can just go and play and have a good time. So financially is one of those things. And I think it's about doing some planning and looking at what can we do within our budget and still have a good time and enjoy it.
When I had my children with me, one of their favorite memories, and I didn't realize this when they were with me, was to go get ice cream, just walking down the street together as a family and getting an ice cream cone. And sometimes the simplest things are the most memorable. And it's okay. You don't have to be like the neighbor across the street or your friends on Facebook doing the best and the greatest thing. It's about creating memories and being okay with that.
And that's a good point, because I think that's the big thing. When kids go back to school, or when adults go to their work, we did this, and it was so much fun, and it was a picnic in the park, and we played Frisbee or whatever it is kind of stuff. And so it's really about creating the memory, and that's what we take with us, in a sense. And so that's important.
You can come back to the workplace on Monday, and you kind of sense it when you're talking about something you did. May not be that great, but somebody didn't do anything. And I think about it a lot with our children. And I know that our staff with the residential kids do whatever they can on the weekends to keep the kids active and out. It's very, very important. So I think our staff does a great job at that. I'm going to pat them on the back right now. So it's all good. Feeling isolated in the summertime, when you start to look at the Facebook envy and everything's doing, you kind of feel like I'm not involved in this thing anymore. You feel isolated. Would you agree with that?
Isolation can be a part of the summertime blues, primarily because it could be because of the heat, and you don't want to go out and do things. And so you find yourself kind of staying at home, isolating, and not getting involved with the world, in a sense. So that is one of those things that can happen. And I think for people, in looking at isolation, it's like maybe having a friend come over or doing something with friends somewhere else that still is cool if the heat is a difficulty for them, or maybe calling a friend and going for a walk. I think in the summer, walking is so good for people, and it helps them also with their stress level in a sense. But isolation is a part of the summertime blues, and I think there's ways that you can look at how can I connect with people, be it through church or just calling a friend or going to coffee shops or those kinds of things. And it doesn't have to happen all the time. It could be every other week or something, or once a week if they want to.
Those are real good suggestions, Rosie. Thank you. We're coming up on a break right now, so don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with more of When Things Aren't Going Well right here on KSCJ.
Let's face it, that happens to all of us. However, the pandemic has compounded all of our lives and activities. Even the simplest tasks seem harder. Hi, I'm Brenda Geisinger, the Chief Operating Officer at the Boys and Girls Home and Family Services. Family Services is a United Way partner agency serving children and families of our community, and we're here to help. If you'd like to learn more about Family Services, please contact us via email, website, Facebook, or phone Mary Pickens. At Family Services, we change lives.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well on KSCJ. Here's Art Silva.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well. Our topic today is summertime blues. Joining me from Family Services is Brenda Geisinger and Rosie Strunk. And on the first half of our show, we identified symptoms and causes of summertime seasonal adjusted disorder, or the summertime blues. Let's continue that conversation, and then we'll get to talking about some help. Previously, before we left, we had some symptoms that we were talking about. Just want to recap that as we go forward, taking a look at not finding, for example, a symptom is not finding pleasure in the things that you used to do that you found pleasure in. You deal with that people just can't seem to find happiness, can't seem to find joy in anything?
Sometimes that tends to happen where we're in a circumstance where we might be feeling a lot of stress. We think that we have a lot of summer projects we're supposed to do. We got lots of things that we're wanting to maybe accomplish in the summer. And so then we're looking at, oh gosh, it's a burden rather than that it's something that we can maybe accomplish. And so sometimes what I think with that, because summertime projects, we all have them, we have a list, and I think there's important to prioritize what those might be, which might be helpful then with looking at stress and feeling overwhelmed in a sense. And so that's one thing that I would encourage people to consider, because we all have projects, we all have things that we want to do. And so I think prioritizing, and then the other part is celebrating the accomplishment of it. And maybe that's something where that is a special kind of thing that you do. You have a special coffee or something, but you also celebrate that.
Brenda?
Yeah, I think it's just acknowledging where you're at. And if you don't want to go outside, I'm not a big sunshine heat kind of lady, but I really don't like bugs. So when the bugs start in, I'm inside. And just being aware of that and knowing that those things stress me out, and it's okay to do something indoors, acknowledging that, and being with my friends that way.
I'm going back to what Rosie said in the first half of our show, and that's talking about the anxiety. And there are certain events that can trigger that anxiety in the summertime. Your eating schedule, or eating out, can be something where it can trigger an event, or going to a barbecue, or going to an event, or the anxiety of getting there. Mm-hmm. Do you experience any of that? Have you talked with folks that experience that problem?
Well, and I think sometimes the heat makes us not hungry. You just don't feel like eating. And it's important to give your body fuel and having foods available. You can have, food from the farmer's market and those fresh fruits and vegetables and experiencing the lusciousness of summer foods. But you have to keep giving your body fuel and being aware of that. The heat can make you not want to eat, but you have to.
Mm-hmm. I know since when I moved from the East Coast to the Midwest, I loved the length of days. It just seemed to stay lighter longer. But at the same time, when you get that time change in the morning, you can throw your rhythm off by getting lighter earlier. And I think that could be a trigger also. Thoughts?
Well, I can just say personally, when it's light, I'm waking up earlier than what I normally would because it's lighter. I'm not sure about all of that, but in the sense of normal kind of stuff, because when it's lighter, it's like sometimes our clock just goes off and we get up earlier, and then it stays lighter in the evening, and so we're staying up later in the evening, so we're losing some time that we would normally be sleeping. And so I think there's times where maybe we need to, I think earlier we talked about, drawing the curtains and trying to sleep longer in a sense, or going to bed a little earlier too. So I think those are all important parts. But yeah, lightness and sunshine and stuff does make a difference, and it throws us off in a sense in regards to our body routine.
We talked earlier about getting out and doing some activities. And you did a nice job, Rosie, I think, of offering some alternatives on the budget side, how to plan some trips, maybe one big one and a lot of little ones, take advantage of your local activities. Mm-hmm. Those are all good ideas because they keep people occupied as they go forward. But let's talk about another area, and this kind of comes into what we do, and that is look at some therapists, looking at a therapist or some help there, specifically cognitive behavior therapy. But could you describe that and what that does?
Sure. I think when we have the summertime blues that some people are able to get through it and are fine. Some people get stuck. And then is when you probably need to go and maybe connect with either a doctor or a therapist, because sometimes you might need to have medication just temporarily throughout the season. The other part is to go and see a therapist, because there might be some things that are going on that maybe you aren't aware of that's triggering in the summertime. And lots of this, when you talk about cognitive behavioral, it's looking at what you're thinking, what's going on in your head that you're thinking that maybe you're doing some negative self-talk a lot of. And so it's looking at how can you change that negative talk into some positive talk so it lifts you up rather than brings you down. And then it's like looking at what can you do differently that will make a difference for you. So all of that, the thinking, the feelings, and the behavior are all tied together, but it starts with our thinking. That gets us a rolling in some form or fashion. And so if we're doing a lot of negative kind of self-talk, look at how can we change that and put some positive self-talk in our dialogue inside our head, because we're always thinking in our head. And so we just need to look at how can we see something that from a positive point of view. Instead of the glass half empty, look at what's half full, in a sense.
Brenda?
I think also with cognitive behavior therapy, like Rosie talked about, is recognizing what are your thinking patterns and then changing that around, and then what are some solutions or steps forward that you can make or changes that you can do, whether that's routine or lifestyle choices. But it's really acknowledging your thinking patterns and then how to go forward from there and being open about all of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes with clients that I do, I'll have them make a list of what's their negative self-talk. And then we'll let's make a list on positive self-talk and then practice the positive self-talk. And sometimes that takes some practice. When we're into the negative or part, we have to kind of push ourselves to look at the positives. And sometimes they realize that when you're talking about patterns, we get into those and we just roll with them. And once we start to take a look at that, we go, whoa, maybe I need to change this and look at things from a more positive perspective. And that can be helpful. And when people start doing that, they start to feel better inside. And they start to look at things and do things maybe a little differently then.
That is so... I'm sorry, Brenda, go ahead.
The other thing, when we talk about positive statements, it's not necessarily just being positive Pollyanna. It's having a realistic understanding of what your thinking is. It's not always roses and sunshine. It's more about what is realistic and putting it in perspective.
Boy, this is all good stuff because it's so true to what we try to do with this show. We try to give information that helps you to help yourself. And Rosie, when you talked about the self-talk, and it takes practice, you're right, but it does work. It's amazing if people will just give it a try. If you get stuck, you feel you need that kind of approach. Also, we touched on medication. Summertime, it could be where you need to talk to your doctor about increasing your medication or change to your medication. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that if you're really feeling down, depressed, stuck kind of stuff, I think it's good to go and talk to your doctor. And some people might not be on any medication, and sometimes it might be just a short-term type of thing where you're on medication for a short period of time. And then again, the doctor might give you other ideas of what you can do that might be helpful too. So, and medication it can be a seasonal kind of thing. It's a short term.
And it could be something that you could find is not seasonally adjusted. You just may find a depression disorder. And so, it's just, we're talking on this topic today on the summertime blues, but it can happen anytime. If you're not feeling right, something's out of order, So please, you can give us a call. We'll give you some help. We're coming up on the end of our show, and every week we try to put a little humor in. Humor is medicine for the soul. So here we go. I told my physical therapist that I broke my arm in 2 places. He told me to stop going to those places.
That is funny.
Well, I want to thank Brenda and Rosie, and also thanks to our listening audience today for joining us this morning. We'll be back next week, but before I go, we want to give a shout out to Dave Bernstein and the Saturday in the Park team. Wow, what a great job. We'll be back next Saturday morning right here on 1360, 94.9 FM, KSCJ, for When Things Aren't Going Well. Thanks, and may the sun shine on you.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you.